think we're going to go ahead and throw you over to that interview with the Resnick twins, Aidan and Maxwell Resnick. Again, authors of the Stats Game. You guys, if you don't know much about sports analytics, you want to learn a little bit. I try to make this as close to analytics for dummies as possible. I asked them what I would call stupid questions. I wanted to get down to the bottom of it. And these two kids, they are literally our kids. They're two high school kids. They know a shitload about analytics. They've been to the conferences, and I think you guys will enjoy us talking about analytics, and maybe you'll learn something. What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Pub Sports Radio Baseball Show. My name is Jose Bouquet, and of course, I'm joined along with another set of guests. My first time interviewing two people at once. I love this. It is the Wonder Twins. I don't know if you guys ever get tired of hearing that, but I think it's really funny every time. Oh, the Wonder Twins, yeah. So this is Aidan and Maxwell Resnick, authors of this lovely book right here that I have in my hands. Actually, the Stats Game. A deep dive into sports analytics in the modern era. How are you guys doing today?
We're doing great. Thank you so much for having us.
Yes, thank you.
Hey, no problem. Let's jump right into it because, like you guys, I feel like you guys are busy men hopping around all these interviews. Not a big deal, whatever. I want to start off by this. I think this might be the first time I've had someone on the show that is my age and or younger. So according to the back of your books, you guys are seniors in high school?
Yes,
correct.
We are seniors.
Okay, so that's, first of all, not a big deal. Whatever. You guys are seniors in high school writing a book. My second question, I hope that this is kind of like the dumbest interview you guys do today. So my second question is, according to the Wikipedia machine, the Horace Mann School is by Riverdale, New York. How tired do you guys get of the Riverdale questions? Like, you guys watch the show? Like, are there oh, you live by Riverdale? Oh, that's so cool. Blah blah blah. Like, does that stuff get annoying?
So personally, I don't think either of us have watched the show, but we have close friends who have, and it's kind of just like a claim to fame. If I hear some of my friends talking about Riverdale, I'm like, oh, I go to school in Riverdale, and it's actually funny because one of Horace Mann's, I guess, neighboring private schools is called, Riverdale. So it gets a bit confusing at times. But I mean, overall, it's kind of like a funny anecdote at most. But yeah, it's pretty funny.
Yeah, I honestly, that's like the first thing I would drop every time I'm having a conversation. Yeah, I go to the school in Riverdale. Obviously, even if I wouldn't, I just drop that in there casually. It's a good time.
Yes, yeah. Absolutely.
So what did you guys like? Why did you guys start writing a book at 18, whatever age you guys are, high school seniors? What got you guys into the stats, and how did the book come together?
Yeah, so I guess a bit of background about us. We've been big sports fans our whole lives. A lot of sports. Baseball, hockey, basketball, football, tennis. Like just whatever's on TV, we'll watch it. And then similarly, we're also very interested in math and quantitative analysis. And so it was actually only until recently, between our sophomore and junior years of high school, when we attended the Wharton Moneyball Academy, which is basically a 3-week program that really introduces the students to the field of sports analytics, and it allows it shows us statistics, it shows us coding, and it's all through the lens of sports. So it's exactly what we love. And let's just say that's really what inspired us to pursue sports analytics. And so since then, we've always been pursuing sports analytics, and by that I mean something as simple as watching TV. We're really like keeping a critical eye for different aspects of the games, or embarking on these long projects that we like to do. But I guess in terms of writing the book, last summer we had quite a few plans of fun things to do over the summer, but like a lot of other things, it got postponed due to COVID-19, and so just like that, we were sort of left without a thing to do. And we sort of thought of the idea to, embark on a long-term project that we could really make this summer memorable. And at the same time, could really use it to spread our perspective on sports to anybody who's interested in reading. And so there's a lot of, as in sort of represented in Moneyball and many other stories, there's a lot of, back and forth between, how much qualitative analysis to use, how much quantitative analysis, where do you want to rely on people who have played the sport? Where do you want to rely on sort of the statistics geeks, for lack of a better word? And so this book was basically our way of sharing our perspective on And I mean, Max always says it didn't really feel like a chore at all. We were really just writing our thoughts onto the page. The sort of wrote itself in that regard. And so we're really happy with how it turned out. And we're really happy that people are getting to read it now and we get to share our ideas.
That's honestly, I think it's funny that you guys are like, yeah, all of our plans got canceled. Might as well just write a book, I guess. Just write down all my thoughts. I think it's so funny. I'm combing through the book right now. I'm almost done, actually. And for someone who doesn't read, like myself, I think all of our generations, we've kind of got away from reading that.
Right.
I'm pretty impressed of how quickly I can get through this book. So shout out to you guys, of course.
Thanks.
And I think it's also funny that there are so many like Red Sox things in here, and it simultaneously makes me happy and just triggers me all at once, because I right before we got on here, I was combing through and I just read the section about how the Red Sox signed Steve Pearce and Nate Eovaldi, and I just I was like steaming. I was like, oh my goodness, let's go. Yeah. So it's a good time. I like I said, I really enjoyed the book though, and kudos to you guys. Getting into like the nitty gritty of your stats. I kind of like I said, I want this interview to be analytics for dummies. If you don't know what analytics are or how we get to these numbers and all these abbreviations, people don't know what the hell they mean. Like let's try to get into it. My first question, again, maybe my dumbest question of the interview. What's R? What is Java? What is that snake that everyone's talking about on there? I'd love for you guys to explain what the hell is that, first of all, because people might not know, and how do you get to your numbers?
Yeah, so those Java, R, Python, and among others are different coding languages. Now, coding is often seen as this thing that a bunch of nerds do in their basement to try to hack into softwares or create different video games and stuff like that, or web design. And I mean, sure, there's an aspect to that, but overall, I mean, this idea of data science and coding is growing every single day. It is the most rapidly developing industry, I would argue, in the world right now, and its applications to sports are immeasurable. So let's say hypothetically, I wanted to perform a study to determine whether it's smarter to draft high school or college baseball players in the MLB draft. Now, I could comb through hours and manually input rows and rows of data from these different databases into a spreadsheet. That would take days and days and days. However, I could export the CSV file into one of these coding systems, type a few lines of code, and all of a sudden my results come out. Now, that's a little idealistic. It isn't that easy, and also you have to learn the language. But to any sports fan out there who has any interest in pursuing analytics at all, even as just a hobby, I cannot express how valuable it is to even know how to know the basics as to how to code. Neither of us are experts by any means, but we know enough where we can perform our own analyses to a thorough extent. And the thing is, like, we're just going to keep on growing. I mean, I know there's like a lot of stuff out there that we can't do yet, but once we learn, I mean, the possibilities, we believe, will be endless. So those are just some coding languages that are really, really valuable in the modern workplace, in any industry. I mean, honestly, we're talking about sports, but learning computer science skills and coding skills could put you in a job in any single industry you can imagine. So it's really an invaluable skill that I would encourage everyone to pick up.
Yeah, you guys are basically the face, like the poster boy faces of like, Mom, let your child play on the computer and do their thing. And something's going to come out of it, guys. I promise you.
Thank you.
That's hilarious. Let's start with this. Let's start with our pillar stats. What are the foundations of analytics when it comes to baseball analytics? We'll focus on there first.
Yeah, so I think the number one statistic, let's say advanced metric that goes beyond the basic box score statistics, and you'll see that even more mainstream sites like ESPN are starting to incorporate this into their analysis, is wins above replacement. It exists in baseball. It also exists to a slightly less publicized capacity in basketball, hockey, other sports, but it's most prominent in baseball. And what's so great about wins above replacement is it grasps a holistic picture of impact and value, and that's obviously essential for general managers or just overall decision makers to have in sports, because it's a perfect indication of how much to pay this player. Should we trade for this player? Should we trade this player away? Should we sign this player? If so, how much? there's so many like decisions that deal with the value of a player, where having a single metric is so important. And then the other thing that's really important about this, that's so sort of user friendly, is it's on a scale that we're all familiar with it. It's on the win scale. So you could look at a player who's an 8 WAR player, and say, you know, by putting this player in our lineup, we're adding 8 wins to our lineup, as opposed to putting a replacement level player in. And then immediately you can determine, you know, how much value should we put into those 8 wins? You know, how do those 8 wins affect our playoff chances, our World Series chances? And so having that easy to access, just measurement of overall impact is so important. Now, one drawback of wins above replacement that other statistics cover is it's not the best at evaluating sort of individual aspects of games. So you could have a one baseball player who's a really insanely good fielder but not the best hitter, and a one baseball player who's an insane hitter but not the best fielder, and they could have the same WAR, and on the surface you're adding the same value to your team. But if let's say let's say your pitching staff has a lot of ground ball pitchers, naturally you're going to want to favor the guy who's really that infielder who's really good defensively. Or if you have pitchers who hardly give up ground balls, maybe you'd want to lean toward that good hitter, even though their value might be the same. And so there are always going to be micro stats in each sport that do that, and we could dive into several of those that we really like. But the best depiction of overall value has to be wins above replacement. And
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Just to add on to that a little. So my favorite statistic to evaluate hitters is called xwOBA. Now we're living it stands for expected weighted on base average. It sounds complicated, but I promise it's not that complicated. I'll explain it in a second. So I don't know how many people are familiar with StatCast, but StatCast is now a player tracking data system that can tell you everything from how hard a ball was hit to the route efficiency that an outfielder took to catch a fly ball. It truly is the greatest, I guess, data innovation in perhaps modern sports history. Now, because it's so great, once a baseball is put in play, based on 3 factors: the exit velocity of the baseball, the angle at which the baseball is hit, and third is the batter's sprint speed, StatCast can tell you the probability that ball will land for a single, double, triple, home run, and out. Now, using those individual probabilities, you can create an xwOBA, so an expected weighted on base average for each individual ball in play. The reason I like it so much is because it takes the 3 things a batter can control into account: strikeouts, walks, and quality of contact. One thing that we find ourselves sucked into way too often is judging a hitter based on the result of a play rather than his individual contribution. If Mookie Betts hits a line drive straight to the shortstop and it gets caught, that's still a very well hit ball for Mookie Betts. However, it was just unlucky that it just happened to go straight to a fielder. However, if Mookie Betts hits a bloop single that just happens to fall right in between the second baseman and right fielder, then yeah, I mean, it's a hit and that's valuable. But in terms of future predictiveness, that's not a sustainable way of I guess, providing value to a team. So with that said, what xwOBA does, it really takes into account what a hitter can control, because that's the whole point of statistics. If you think about it, it's to isolate the individual. The same can be said for pitchers. It's the reverse with pitchers. Pitchers can take those 3 things into account as well: quality of contact, strikeouts, and walks. And so you could use that to create statistics such as expected ERA, which is a much better measure of a pitcher's true performance instead of their actual ERA, which is plagued by several factors that are completely out of their control.
So let's start again. You said xwOBA and WAR. I think most baseball fans should get those numbers. But what are good numbers? You say we see the numbers, we know what they are. Now, what are we looking for a baseline here?
Okay, so there are fantastic graphs on Fangraphs that basically tell you like what each WAR means. So obviously, if you have a 0 WAR, you're a replacement level player. You are at the level of the said replacement level that WAR is measured on. Once you get to like 2 to 4 WAR, that's when you get to like a guy who's a pretty valuable contributor to a team. I mean, he's not going to win MVP, but that's a pretty valuable player. 4 to 6 is when you start touching on the all-star range. That's when you get guys who are like playing at a really, really high level that season. And once you get 6 to 8, that's like most years that'll put you in MVP contention. And if you have a WAR of 8, I mean, that should for the most part solidify you as perhaps the most valuable player that season. I mean, outside of Mike Trout, if you take Mike Trout out of Major League Baseball, the number of seasons like over like 8 or 9 WAR over in the past decade, it's a short list, and it makes it more impressive when people do it. Now, once you add Trout into that, I mean, he owned, I think, half the list himself. But for example, I mean, the best season, in my opinion, of the past decade was Mookie Betts' 2018 season. I'm sure you'll be happy to hear that. But
am I, bro? Am I happy about it?
You should be happy for what he provided to the Red Sox. I mean, he helped them win a World Series, so that is definitely a valuable aspect of his time there. But Mookie Betts, I mean, that season I think he posted like a 10.8 WAR or something like that. So, which is very, very good. I mean, that's like approaching like all-time historic season levels. So that's a good WAR. Now, in terms of XWOBA, it sounds complicated, but for any baseball analytics fans out there, I would encourage you guys to visit the website baseballsavant.com. This provides all these StatCast as well as basic statistics for different players and allows you to really visualize the game from a statistical perspective. One thing I love about it is that you're right. If I see someone has a .356 XWOBA, how do I know? Is that good? Is that bad? Like, how am I supposed to interpret that? The thing that website does that's so valuable is it provides percentiles. So you can see, oh, that ranks in the 70th percentile. So this guy isn't the best hitter, but he's firmly an above average hitter. Or if you see like I think like Juan Soto had like a .466 xWOBA last year, which was like leading the league. Like if I just say, okay, Juan Soto has a .466 xWOBA, you might be like, I don't necessarily know like how to interpret that. But once you see that it ranks in the 100th percentile in the league, then you're like, okay, that is pretty incredible. So that's one thing, and it does it for statistics like sprint speed, exit velocity, launch angle, for pitchers like fastball and curveball spin rates, like just anything you could possibly imagine. Defensive statistics too. So percentiles are a really good way to kind of, for lack of a better way of putting it, dumb it down and really show like how to interpret it.
Yeah, no, I love that stuff. Baseball Savant is a must website.
Absolutely.
I spend a lot of my days there now, and it's actually quite alarming how much time I spend down there now.
I can relate to that, yes.
So I wanted to ask you guys. You guys make a couple analytical cases in your book, and I wanted to ask you like individually about a couple. And maybe we're not going to give away the whole book, but I just wanted to ask, get your thoughts, and maybe, we'll talk about Alex Bregman, 80% percentile hit and whatever. I won't mention. Maybe I will. Maybe I won't. Who knows? But let's start off with another one that I'll hate to mention. You guys make the case that Derek Jeter. Turns out he wasn't that good at being a defensive shortstop. Apparently, who would have thought?
Yeah, so it's really interesting, and our goal is never to call out Derek Jeter. Like there were some we were more trying to make a point. This was merely an example of how our eyes can mislead us. And so I think first I'll talk for a bit about why we might be inclined to think that Derek Jeter was an insane defender. Like when we're watching a game on TV, right? What do we see? So we'll see the pitcher, we'll see the hitter, and the catcher, the umpire, and so on. Pitcher pitches the ball, the hitter makes contact, and then let's say it's a ground ball to shortstop. In between the time at which the ball leaves the bat and the ball gets to the shortstop, at some point then the camera angle switches to Derek Jeter, right? So what we see is Derek Jeter moving and fielding the ground ball, which is important, and throwing it first. And all of those are important. And, I'm sure we could all think of a lot of heroic Derek Jeter backhand plays where he's on the outfield grass and throwing across his body to first. I think, and obviously kudos to him, as by no means is that an easy play. But what we don't see, which is obviously really important, is the time it takes him to react to the ball. And so you'll look, some diving plays, just more of a general sense, some diving plays for fielders are routine plays for even better fielders because they react quicker so they don't have to dive. So it's always important to realize that when we have stats that measure, how quickly these players react, the angle they take on the ball, like things that we really can't pick up on with our eyes, even if we really tried our best, then those stats are going to naturally be much more precise in evaluating this defensive impact of Derek Jeter and any player in general than we will be. And so it's an unfortunate reality that I think is maybe more and more publicized as analytics are advanced. But yeah, I think that. And the other thing I'd add is like baseball is like a simplified example of this, where you look at the quantifiability of baseball, where you have just a pitcher, a hitter, and then usually one or two fielders that touch the ball in a given play.
Like, that's pretty simple in that you don't have that many players to evaluate, and it's pitch after pitch, so you really can figure out exactly when to evaluate, where to evaluate, and so on. Now, imagine a sport like football, where yes, football's play after play, but you have 22 guys on the field. You only get to see a certain number of them on TV, and it's impossible to watch all of them. My favorite exercise I like to do to some of my friends is like, we'll watch a play, and then I'll be like, what did number 74 contribute to this play? And they'll have no idea because it's some random offensive lineman that nobody knows. And of course, I'll have no idea because who's watching a random offensive lineman in the middle of a play? That's just not something we do. And so if you look at more complicated sports like that, there are so many things that our eyes miss out on that these statistics cover, where it's an unfortunate reality because in an ideal world, we would be capable of everything. But it's really important that we know to trust this data. And in this case, Derek Jeter is not favored from this data.
So Fangraphs.com, along with Baseball Savant, is probably with a 1A and 1B of baseball analytical websites. They have this statistic called a defensive run saved, which is basically meant to approximate just that, like how many runs did a given defender save. Now, if that number is positive, that means they provided a positive impact. They saved runs. If that number is negative, that means they allowed runs and put their team at a defensive disadvantage. I believe I'm getting this number correctly, but I know it's somewhere in this ballpark. But Derek Jeter, in his career, posted a defensive run saved value of negative 162, which ranks last all time. So I'm not necessarily saying he's the worst defender ever, because he also had longevity, which helped bolster the total, perhaps. But my overall point is that this also speaks to a greater issue with sports fans, is that they often use highlights to evaluate players, and it's so silly to think about that in a sense. Like, yeah, I like watching highlights too, but not for player evaluation. That's just purely for entertainment.
Yeah,
highlights. I mean, they isolate individuals. That just makes you prone to selection bias. It isolates a select few plays, the plays in which the player looks the best, to cause this clouded image of a player in your head. Some NBA players who are analytical, I guess, they're horrific analytically, have these plays. They'll make these plays now and then that are just absolutely fantastic, and will have anyone up off their seat and just wow. Doesn't mean they're a good player though. So that's one issue. And yeah, Derek Jeter, I mean, I guarantee you, if you survey 1,000 traditionalist baseball writers and say, was Derek Jeter a good defender? 999 of them might say, yeah, he was. And in truth, I mean, that kind of just speaks to the biases that are caused by the eye test.
Yeah, I mean, shout out to him for just collecting a couple of gold gloves at the end of his career that he simply did not deserve. So,
exactly.
Yeah, it's my Thank you. That made my day right there. That one run saved metric just made my day.
If anyone doesn't believe me, they're welcome to check for themselves. If you go to the Fangraphs all-time leaderboard and check it is
for yourself. Let's spread the gospel. I'm ready. I'm ready to do it.
Truly incredible.
My second one was the Pedro Martinez. Basically, his the best season of all time was what you guys were basically indicating.
I'll go a step farther than that and say Pedro Martinez is the greatest pitcher of all time. I don't think you're complaining with that statement. And look, people will have their arguments for perhaps a Walter Johnson or someone in Pedro's era like Randy Johnson or Greg Maddux or someone, and it's nothing against those guys. But what Pedro Martinez is not only what he did for a 7-year stretch. For those in the audience who aren't familiar with the book, that Pedro Martinez section came in a chapter all about how important it is to factor in context. The surrounding factors that influence a player's game have to be taken into account. Now, the massive one in Pedro's case was he pitched in the middle of the steroid era, an era where the league average ERA and league pitching stats absolutely just ballooned in the hitter's favor. I mean, the league was home run after home run. You saw guys like Mark McGwire and Sammy Sosa absolutely demolishing the cover off the baseball. What did Pedro Martinez do? He had, I think, a 7-year stretch where he posted some of the greatest seasons in Major League history. Now, longevity wasn't, in terms of evaluating him all time, longevity wasn't necessarily his friend, but I don't think, given the circumstances, to put that into perspective, I mean, we're supposed to have a dead-end ball this upcoming season in baseball. If Jacob deGrom pitched for a literal 1 ERA or 1 expected ERA, I think that would be comparable to what Pedro Martinez did.
And that just sounds so surreal nowadays because nobody does that, but that is truly what it was. Now, one thing I want to introduce to the audience is this idea of Z-scores. Z-scores are a statistical concept that helps you find how many standard deviations above the mean is someone. And the reason that that's so useful is because it helps us put players in the context of their era. If you take, there was one season where I think Pedro Martinez had like a 1.9 ERA or something like that. Now, in any season, that is great. I mean, there's not a single season in MLB history where that's not a great ERA to have. However, I think that ranks like in like 80th or so in individual seasons all time because of how many seasons in like the dead ball era were just pitchers just posted like surreal ERAs. However, if you standardize for era and say how good was that compared to the league average, Pedro Martinez ranks first by a sizable margin. What he did during the steroid era will never be replicated again. And I think it's one of the most underappreciated things because people don't really look at those statistics and be like, oh, they're great, but they're not the best ever, when in truth, they truly are.
Hey, again, you guys are making all my cases for me. I'm just, whenever someone wants to argue with me that Pedro Martinez isn't whatever, so-and-so the greatest of all time or greatest season of all time, I'll just point them back right here. I've got the Z-score to tell you.
Yeah, we're from New York, so if there are any Yankees fans, we sincerely apologize. We don't I personally don't dislike the Yankees necessarily. It's just those two things. The Derek Jeter and Pedro Martinez things are two things.
This hat, and I just happened to pick out those two.
Yeah.
And it's just me cherry picking. It's not you guys. It's what I do here. I've got two more questions for you guys before we get out of here. I think the most viral or the moment that everyone started talking about this baseball season was Blake Snell getting pulled early and the whole third time around the order team thing. What do you guys thought? What were your thoughts in the moment? I guess if you guys were watching, and what do you think? I guess you should know the reasoning. You can't let a guy go through the third order. But do you guys agree with that whole thing? Is there a fine line between going with your gut and then always analytics and stuff like that?
Yeah, so I guess I'll speak to that last point first, where as much as I would love all of our guts to be spot on, they're not, and the numbers, even though they're not perfect, tell a much more accurate story of what decisions should be made. In terms of the Blake Snell situation, the Rays are known for being a very, very modern team. Kevin Cash is probably the most analytically advanced manager in baseball, and they also have a lot of front office guys who seem to excel at this, and that's great. They managed to be successful with a very low payroll, and I have a lot of respect for that. The Rays implemented, as I'm sure you're familiar with, the opener a few years back. And it's gotten a lot of criticism in baseball, especially amongst star pitchers, and understandably so. They don't really want to change any aspect of their routine. But for a lot more average pitchers, and not to say that the Rays have only average pitchers, they've had great pitchers, but in general, when you look at how pitchers perform, usually pitchers, and this also speaks to the Blake Snell thing, pitchers don't perform as well the third time around the order. And so you look at how to best strategize and how to actually save your bullpen arms as best as possible. It seems a little counterintuitive because starting with a reliever is actually the best way of saving your bullpen arm. It's actually pretty cool the way it works out. But if you imagine a reliever starts a game, usually he'll face maybe the top 3 or top 4 hitters on the team, and then the starter, let's say, comes in for the 5 hitter in the second inning. The starter will pitch twice through the order, and then once the starter gets to the third time through the order, the starter has to face 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 in the lineup. If you want the starter to face the third time of the order, would you rather they face 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, or would you rather they face the first 4 hitters, the heart of the lineup? And so doing this allows, the starters to have a much easier matchups in the third time through the order, and it gives managers more confidence in throwing them that extra inning and in preserving bullpen arms. Whereas if you start the starter and you don't want him to go through the third time of the order, you're probably not going to even want to pitch him to the leadoff hitter the third time, because that really could be a recipe for disaster. And speaking through this whole third time through the order thing, Blake Snell is actually it's a very interesting debate, because I do see both sides of it. But the analytical side of this says that Blake Snell should have been pulled. His numbers through the third time of the order are definitely not the Blake Snell we know, and it's not to his fault. It's just sort of naturally what happens as you go deep into games. The Rays have a fabulous bullpen. Nick Anderson was arguably the best, or at least one of the best relievers in baseball last year. And so on one hand, you look at the numbers, you say,
why would, Blake Snell had pitched extremely well before. Why wait for it to implode? Take him out while he hasn't done anything bad yet, because the numbers insist that the likelihood of that is increasing as he goes deeper into a game. And why not, use this bullpen in this crucial World Series game and try to close it out that way? And so both of us really like the move to pull him. But I'll also throw out this for maybe more people who are more on the side of they should have kept him in. Blake Snell, after, I'm sure many people know, he was traded to San Diego Padres, and he published a piece in the Players Tribune where he outlined sort of his thought process in Game 6. And it's very fascinating. I encourage anybody to go read that. He explains that, he was cruising. He felt fantastic. He was rolling. How many people get to throw the best start of their life in Game 6 of the World Series, right? That's pretty amazing. And for a lot of people, that they go to the World Series once and that's it. You don't really have that time over again. And so he was enjoying it. But then, and he said his mindset was get this batter out, then get this batter out, then get this batter out. How should I get Mookie Betts out? How should I get AJ Pollock out? And so on, which is great. That's what you want your pitcher to be thinking about. Then he says he goes out and he sees Nick Anderson warming up in the bullpen. And immediately his mindset shifts from, how do I get this batter out, to I can't give up a hit or else they'll pull me. And that change in mindset, because obviously, that's something that we can't quantify, but that doesn't mean it's not important. That change in mindset could completely deteriorate a pitcher's performance. And so he gives up a hit, and then just like that, you see that he's out of the game. And I think it clearly doesn't work, and he was never going to be the same pitcher once you throw that bullpen out there. And so that speaks for a greater sort of thing in analytics, where you want to use numbers, but and a lot of us, like, we're both big fantasy sports players. We're really interested in just sort of simulating what it's like to be a manager of a team, and there's obviously a lot of fun to that. But what people don't realize, or I guess people do realize it, but maybe often ignore it, is that fantasy sports it completely takes the human element out of this. You're not dealing with humans on an everyday basis. You can put a player in your lineup, you can take a player out of their lineup, and that will not change their emotions one bit. When you're actually managing these players, that plays a huge effect. So having this system where these players feel like they are used to their greatest ability is so crucial. And so in that regard, there is an argument for saying, maybe Blake Snell should have pitched a little longer. I don't know if anybody's saying should have gone 9 innings, but a little longer. And so I really do see both sides to it. And I think we're very open to a lot of perspectives, and we do feel for Blake Snell, because I think change is hard when it means that you're getting pulled in Game 6 of the World Series when you're pitching the game of your life. But that said, he's also a very young pitcher, and there are definitely bright days ahead for Blake Snell, especially on the Padres. So, yeah.
I just want to also underline that at the beginning, when you were talking about high-profile pitchers that did not want to be like they're not driving with the whole opener thing, you were talking about Garrett Cole. It was Garrett Cole. Garrett Cole, of course. Again, we're gonna slide that Yankees ding in there again too. We're on the same wavelength.
Yeah.
My last big question. I have a speed round for you, but my last, I guess, big analytics, big brain question is that we've had this runner on second, extra innings nonsense last year. We're gonna get it again. Who knows if we're gonna stay with it after this? But everyone's always talking about guys on second, traditional, just lay that bunt down, get them over, sack fly, boom, there you go, done. And then all that good stuff. But now we've heard recently, bunting sucks, all this stuff. It's a free out. You're not supposed to give outs. What is that? I mean, I feel like I know where you guys are going to lean here, but let's all put ourselves in the mind of a manager here. How are you going to handle your extra inning situation?
Yeah. So, well, first of all, this is a little bit of an unpopular opinion, but I actually kind of like the second inning.
I do too. I mean,
Like, I mean, I think people are critical because, it's not the way the game is supposed to be played. But I mean, it's like, think of it like shootouts in hockey. I mean, the game is basically decided by who can score on breakaways at the end of the game sometimes. But I mean, there are reasons to that. You don't want a regular season game in the middle of January going on and on and on and on. Same reason they implemented 3-on-3 overtime, because they think at that point, like, let's just end this game. Like, let's get a winner. And in baseball, you don't want to have to throw 10 bullpen arms in a middle of August regular season game. So there's definitely merit to that. As for from the manager's perspective, I mean, there are factors that I'm going to speak in generalities here, but with that said, there are factors that matter. I mean, if your pitcher's up, then maybe you want to bunt, or maybe like if you're 9 hitters up in the AL, like you might want to bunt. But overall, no. Bunting is one of the most outdated strategies in baseball. In a sense, I mean, one of the philosophies of Moneyball that still holds true today is like, why are you giving your opponent an out? Same reason, like, why are you like even worse than that? Honestly, sometimes I see the runner on second try to steal third. Why are you doing that? Why are you gambling? You are starting with a runner in scoring position with 0 outs. Why are you gambling to just advance that 1 extra base? The probability of scoring from second with 0 outs to scoring on third with 0 outs is, I mean, obviously it's better to be on third, but it's not as staggering as one might imagine. I mean, the two are relatively comparable. I mean, they call it scoring position. They call both of them scoring position for a reason. A base hit should drive in both in most circumstances. Now, obviously, like I'm not saying like all situations where all bunting situations are automatically stupid, but it seems like it's just like, if personally, I mean, if I'm an opposing manager in that situation, I see a runner on second and the opposing team wants to give me an out, great, thank you. I'll gladly accept it. Throw the guy out at first. Don't even mess around with the guy at third, or I guess from second running to third, and get the out. It is truly one of the most incredible strategies that I just don't understand, really. It's just too... It's like too bold in a sense. And I see like these stupid narratives rise, like, oh, we're just trying to like get a spark, or like we needed to make something happen. In what circumstance, in what way is giving your opponent an out making something happen or giving a spark? I mean, look, I'm not saying like it's always stupid, but overall, it's just like it's a strategy that, like, if I'm the opponent, if I'm the opposing pitcher, and I'm tasked with getting 3 outs with a guy on second, and you want to give me that first out with a bunt, thank you very much.
Yeah, I'm glad that we're all on the same page. We're big anti-bunting podcasts on this show right here. I'm glad.
Yeah,
I'm going to let you guys go with the speed round here.
Awesome.
We're going to bounce around a little bit. This might be a little random. You know, this is going to be fun, though. So I hope you guys are ready.
We're ready to it.
Oh, this one, I'm going to throw one of you two are going to throw each other on the bus here. Who was the better athlete of the two of you?
I am.
We had different strengths. I think baseball's the sport we took most seriously. He was a pitcher. I think he focused a lot more on pitching. I focused a lot more on hitting. But yeah, I don't know. I think
I still play mostly, and he might play this season, but
I
he
still
took
have
last season off.
decisions to make. But we're not. I mean, we love playing sports recreationally, not big athletes though.
So what's the arsenal then? What's in the pitch arsenal?
Mostly a fastball, curveball, changeup combo. I mean, as much as I love strikeout pitchers, I wish I was more of one myself. I mean, sometimes I have to kind of rely on weak contact and dotting the quarters. I mean, accuracy's always been one of my strongest suits, but yeah, I guess I'm like a lefty Greg Maddux to a much lesser extent.
Good, yes. I'm glad. Whose pitch would you take from the majors right now then?
Oh, that's a great question. Honestly, if I had Jordan Hicks's 102 mile per hour fastballs with movement, I'm not complaining. Another pitch, I mean, as a lefty, I mean, Andrew Miller's slider. I mean, he's kind of getting a little past his prime now, but back like mid 2010s, Andrew Miller's slider was lethal. Same with Chris Sale. So like, yeah, the list goes on and on. But also, I don't want to forget about Luis Castillo's changeup. That pitch is absolutely lethal.
Yeah, and then we have to mention Devin Williams' changeup too.
Oh yeah, no, that guy's and Hader too. I mean, those guys, both those guys are, I guess, incredible.
Okay, so then whose batting stance did you copy when you were growing up?
I think the default one, growing up in New York, A-Rod was one where I was like, it's kind of simple. I think now looking at a guy who's the most fascinating right now, I'd say probably Anthony Rizzo. He's left-handed. I'm not.
I don't do any Anthony Rizzo batting.
But I'm not saying I copy. It's the one that's most entertaining for us. It leads to too many hit by pitches for me, so I'll stay out of it. But I think, yeah, I don't know. I think A-Rod and growing up was probably the one that I emulated most.
I became a big hit by pitch guy after I saw Moneyball. I was like, I just got to get on base.
Yeah, I wish I were that courageous.
It's all fun and games until a pitcher starts pumping.
Oh yeah, no. I simply was not about that life.
Yeah, that I'm out.
Yeah, no, I was a pitcher too, and I was like, you know what, guys, I just simply don't want to hit. You know,
right.
I'm out of this hitting nonsense.
Yeah, exactly.
What are your favorite stats? I should say this. What stat just gets you really going? If maybe it might be a cool abbreviation. Maybe it tells a lot.
So I touched on xWOBA earlier, which is my favorite stat to evaluate hitters. It's, I guess, expected weighted on base average. In terms of pitchers, I like the same thing, but it's translated on an ERA scale. So it can tell you like what a pitcher's ERA is supposed to be. I also like expected FIP, which is expected fielding independent percent. Fielding independent pitching. Yeah. as a pitcher and as a hitter, I also like WRC plus. Those are great stats. In terms of defense, the three main ones are defensive runs saved, UZR, which stands for ultimate zone rating, and outs above average. I mean, using those three, you can get a pretty good depiction of how good of a hitter of a fielder someone is. And I guess from a catcher's perspective, in terms of framing, that's actually a very interesting one. You could tell Baseball Savant has a statistic that measures how many runs a catcher saves solely due to his framing. And so that's like one reason. Like I hate bad calls in sports, but I'm kind of skeptical of robot umps, because I think that's a really integral element to the game. And you see these framers who might be out of jobs, honestly, like if you take that aspect away, because they're really good.
Yeah, shout out to Tyler Flowers.
Yeah, and Roberto Perez of the Indians. I mean, that Indian staff has been great for years, and he is a huge reason why.
It's hilarious. Every offseason or every October, I see Roberto Perez playing on the Indians. I'm like, man, he is awful. And then he does all these things that makes him better. I think it's fantastic. Exactly. So I think my final question here, this might grind down the fast pacedness of it, but I think the main complaint from, we'll call them the olds, is that, they're getting really tired of all of the numbers in baseball. Like when we want to have these like discussions when it's like, who's better, Michael Jordan or LeBron? They don't have a traditional war, but they are getting one. So you guys tell me that. They don't have like a stat where we can say, oh, Mike Trout, 10 war, Mookie Betts, 8 war. Clearly Mike Trout's better. And stuff like that. How do you guys feel about that? Just know that baseball might be being oversimplified when it comes to these numbers.
Right. So I would say that one thing that I think people misinterpret, and it's to no one's fault except, actually, I don't know who's to blame for this. It's just, it should never be, numbers people versus, qualitative analysis people. It's all, what the analogy we always like to use is sports analytics is the collection of information, and we like to think of it as a puzzle, right? You have 100 puzzle pieces, maybe 90 of them are with numbers, 10 of them are with qualitative observations. I guess that those numbers are I'm just spitballing, but I think if people view it more as everything is important, because one of the chapters of the book, we talk about chemistry, leadership, and mindset as qualitative things that you really can't quantify, but they're obviously very important. And so I would just say that yes, I would say that a single number will oversimplify something almost always, because there's so much to say about these players with numbers, with phrases, with just in general observations, that you can't just use a number. But I would just invite people to not look at it as much as, either old versus new, and how do we merge these to get the most precise evaluation possible. Definitely.
Oh, well, I'm glad you put it like that. There we go. It's just that easy, guys. It is that easy.
Also, one quick thing to add. One thing I always like to say is, nobody's forcing you to adapt or to change, but these sports are always going to be evolving and always going to be changing. And they're not waiting for you. So if you want to jump on the ship, please go ahead. But I guess the train is leaving the station soon.
Yeah. Hey, it's already left.
It's already left.
Already left. And you need to go pick up a copy of the Stats Game today. Aidan and Matthew Resnick. Thank you guys for joining us. This is fun. I hope you guys had fun, and I hope maybe this broke up a little bit of the monotony of your interviews.
Oh, absolutely.
This was a lot of fun.
Plenty of fun. Yes.
Thank you so much. We really appreciate it.
No problem, guys. And we're back. That was a great interview with the Resnick twins. Like I said, thank you for joining us. We talked about a lot of fun stuff, and turned out to be, Andrew, you weren't there, but it turned out to be a lot of Yankee bashing. There's
it's always fun to bash the Yankees.
A lot of subtle jabs in there. My favorite part of the interview, I think you'll notice it on my face. We talked about Derek Jeter. They make a couple of analytical cases in their book, and we talked about Derek Jeter, and they proved statistically that he has the worst defensive run saved of any shortstop of all time. So. And I got a good chuckle out of that. Let me tell you, Andrew. I got a good chuckle out of that. What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Pub Sports Radio Baseball Show. My name is Jose Bouquet, and actually joined by my good buddy, Andrew Santangelo. Andrew, how you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. Feels good to be back on here. It's been a crazy last few weeks.
Yeah,
I know. With you, I know you down there. The storms kind of hit both of us, changed my whole schedule around, and feels good to be back though.
Yeah, it's been a minute. Shout out to everyone. I guess we did not keep our once a week podcast promise, but shout out to my
That's because of weather. That's because of weather. We were doing good until then.
yeah, the power out for a couple days. That was not fun, but thankfully we are now past the crisis, and I am now actually hot wearing my Bruins jersey. So it's good. That's Texas weather.
Is there a reason why you're wearing that Bruins jersey?
No, not even.
Okay.
I don't have a reason for you, Andrew. I wish I could give you one, but wait. Didn't our favorite hockey teams play recently?
I guess they technically did.
I must have missed it. It was it in Philadelphia? Was it in Boston? I must have. Could you inform me what happened?
Was it in Philly? No, it was in Michigan, right?
I think it was in Lake Tahoe. And the Bruins, what was the score? 7-3, 7-2. Good God.
Yeah, 7-3. Because you guys went like on a 4-goal scoring spree in like, what was it, 40 seconds?
Yeah, it was really funny. Like I said, I'm not a big sticky puck guy, but I have all my notifications on, of course, and I see Andrew, our good friend Joe, and our good friend Sean always talking about the Flyers. So I have to take my shots when I can get them. I can take my shots when I can get them. It's fun,
You
especially.
can take them a lot this year, so.
Yeah, hey, well, I don't watch hockey that much, and I didn't watch a second of the game, so I'm sure that made them really happy.
Yes, you texted me. I was like, dude, I'm not even watching. I'm at work.
I'm not even watching. Oh boy. Okay, let's get into the baseball, Andrew. We've kept the people waiting long enough. There's a lot to talk about. Let's start off with the positives first. We're a positive podcast. Let's start positive. Fernando Tatis Jr. got a bag, Andrew. He got a lot of money, Andrew. A lot of money.
I wish I could make that money.
14 years, $340 million guaranteed to stay in San Diego. He is the face of baseball, and he is the face of the Fathers. The Padres locked him up. This has kind of been rumbling around through this offseason, and they came together and got it done, Andrew.
Yeah, I mean, good for them. I think it's a move. 14 years is obviously a lot of years, but you lock up your star. I mean, we've seen it kind of it's been the trajectory for a little bit now with superstars. You see Bryce Harper, you see Mike Trout. I mean, now the Fernando Tatis. I mean, it all started obviously back with Albert Pujols with the 10-year deal. It's kind of been going on from there. And I think that this is the way you're going. I mean, 14 years is a lot of commitment, but obviously nowadays you'll find ways to trade people. You have half the team eat the salary or whatever. But, hey, some people are going to argue he's the face of baseball right now. So I think it's a move they had to make. He's going to continue to make them money. Now they're going to pay him a lot of money, obviously. It's good for both sides. And I think it's a situation where – hey, now you solidify that shortstop and third base spot. I mean, I forget Machado's exact years, but I think that was 9 or 10 years as well. So you kind of got those two guys locked in for basically the next decade.
Yeah, it's insane. It's insane. Andrew, I want to play a game with you real quick, Andrew.
Oh, I love games.
I know you do. How much do you think the San Diego Padres are paying for their infield?
Well, let's see. Like per year?
Total. How much money have they invested in their infield total?
Okay, so
yeah, this is math, guys. Let's see, Andrew. The steam is coming out of Andrew.
I'm gonna go $950 million.
Okay, it's somewhat close. It's too high though. It's too high. You're getting
Too high? All right.
800.
Well, I figured Machado was probably around 300. Fernando's obviously is 300, so I was thinking 600 there. I was thinking Hosmer was about 200. So
44, and I think Machado's making like 250 to 275.
Isn't it 300? I could have
I'm
sworn
not
it was
absolutely sure. Unfortunately, I don't have their whole salary cap sheet in front of me, but I just wanted that 800 piece, Andrew. That sweet.
That's crazy.
$800 million for just their infield alone. It's one of the best in baseball. They've got the left side of the infield locked down. They just re-signed, or I guess not re-signed. They signed Ha-Sung Kim from the KBO. Jake Cronenworth was a Rookie of the Year candidate last year. He didn't win it. I know it was Devin Williams and Kyle Lewis. But Eric Hosmer, $144 million over there to man first base. They're the real deal, and I cannot wait to watch these Padres, especially Padres Dodgers now. That is the rivalry in baseball. I'm glad. I can't wait.
Yeah, I mean, you heard it from Justin Turner. You're basically going to get 19 World Series games a year now. When he re-signed with the Dodgers this past week, that was a big thing. He said in one of his return interviews was that, hey, it's a rivalry that's going to be there for a while now. It's going to be crazy, and basically going to have probably the two best teams going at it 19 times a year.
Yeah, I can't wait. Especially that first meeting is going to be fun. That first meeting is going to be very fun. All right, Andrew, let's switch gears to a little not depressing, but this things anger me, and I think we have to talk about them. Seattle Mariners, I guess I should say former Seattle Mariners president Kevin Mather. I don't know if I'm saying your name right, but I simply do not care because you do not deserve your name to be corrected. Resigned because I think he resigned today, actually. But he resigned after he did an interview and this like round table, like press conference kind of thing. People were asking him questions, and he stepped in all of the shit. Literally every answer this man gave was a bad answer, and he did so much damage in this 45 minutes. It's shocking how much he did. He mocked former All-Star pitcher Iwakuma for having a need of a translator, having to pay one. He mocked Julio Rodriguez, one of their top prospects in their system, who is, I think he's like 22 now, and he came to them when he was like 17, and he mocked him for not knowing English. That also made me super angry. He admitted to service time manipulation with their top prospect. For some reason, whenever I think of their top prospect, his name looks like Jared Clentak to me, and I think of you. So they admitted to prospect manipulation, service time manipulation, and he had to resign today because of all the shit he said. Basically, it's such a terrible look. I mean, and the craziest part to me, I guess, was he brought up the ability to speak English when it was talking about Iwakuma and Julio Rodriguez, and not one soul, Andrew, not one soul even asked him about their ability to speak English. He just like brought that up randomly as hell, and he's like, yeah, they're good ball players, good guys. But I hated to pay their translators because blah, 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 blah. It's so crazy, and I was so angry when I read the article, and I'm glad that he has resigned now.
Yeah, I think it's a shame. I feel like we've been talking about these negative topics for the last 3 or 4 weeks now. We've been on here. So I think this one personally, though, it's a shame to me, first off, that the organization has to wait for the criticism to come out so bad for them to not even fire him, like for him to resign. Yeah, which it's a resign in quotation because they probably addressed him where it's like, okay, we're going to give you the option to resign to help yourself, or we're going to fire you or whatever. And it's a shame, and it's the same thing with these organizations. I mean, cross sports real quick, you had the Jaguars situation with Urban Meyer. I can't remember the guy's name who he signed, but it took a backlash the entire day where then I think it was 5 hours later, the guy resigns because of the backlash.
Yeah.
Like it shouldn't have to take.
Andrew, literally that guy got fired from Iowa because of racist things, proven he resigned, and Urban Meyer was like, I've known this guy all my life. He's a great guy. Sign him up. Crazy. But and the Mariners president, Kevin, as we'll call him, he was in the organization for 25 years. That is so crazy.
Oh, it's unbelievable. Like, and it makes you wonder, like, when these things come out, like, it makes me wonder, at least, how much else has he been saying? Like, for those 25 years, for example. Like, this is what he just got caught doing. Like, what else is he doing, like, all on the other days, like, leading up to it? And it's a shame that it's still a thing in sports, and I don't know when it's going to be able to leave. But, yeah, it's unacceptable. It's very bad, and I don't understand why it's still a thing, to be honest.
It's insane. And on top of that, too, this just wasn't an isolated incident, Andrew. He did this, and on top of that, he was previously accused of doing the same shit that fucking Mickey Callaway and Jared Porter did to reporters. The same shit he was accused of, and the Mariners like, well, we'll just go ahead and sweep this under the rug. Let's just no one pay attention to us. We're in the Pacific Northwest. No one pays attention to us, and it's so annoying. It's so annoying. And on top of all the fucking grotesque shitty shit he said, he admitted to service time manipulation, clearly. Like he said, like we're not gonna. He could start on their top prospect. Could start on the opening day roster, but they said no. We'll wait a month because the whole thing. They said the same thing about another one of their prospects. He said that they'll expect them in 2021. It'll be more like 2022, 23. All of this right here, Andrew. This is fuel. This is MLB Players Association's fuel going into the labor negotiations this next year, and we've talked about it before. I just can't see a way that we don't get a strike.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. I'm right with you. I think everything points to a strike happening. I mean, I hope I'm wrong. I hope we're surprised and we get a start to the next season. But listen, the fact that you kind of look at the way things have been going, like you said, now this is fuel for them to kind of argue stuff in their end. You see how bad the negotiations have gone from last season with started COVID to this season, where all it took was one. They offered once, and then that was it. They didn't even continue to negotiate things. Like, I think it's crazy to look at how bad things are in the MLB right now, and it's sad to see. But I think it has to be fixed from all ends, starting with the top and from Rod Manfred, from getting everyone on the same page and fixing the issues of baseball on the field and off the field, because it is a problem. Like, this is the fourth or fifth incident at least within the last month, maybe a little over a month that has happened since just the start of the new year. Like, and I think it's unacceptable. And I think I think you have to call out the commissioner partly as well, just because it's his job to kind of keep everyone on the same page and understand where they're at. And I think it's going to be a lot is on Rob Manfred's hands in a few months is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, and I have the exact quotes from Corey Brock, who wrote this piece in The Athletic. It was at the end of the article, and he said, "This isn't the first time that Mather has been in the news. In 2018, he and two other executives who were no longer with the team were accused of sexual harassment by two former female employees. An outside expert conducted an investigation and quote imposed inappropriate discipline, management, and sensitivity training and other corrective actions. The team eventually said that they made amends, and he paid out $500,000 settlements to assuming both of the employees. Again, that automatically you should be fired for that shit. I'm glad that he resigned, I guess, but it's just such a terrible look. And we're all leading up to fucking next year.
See, I got a question of one of his quotes, too. This is one of his quotes from his statement. "I want to apologize to every member of the Seattle Mariners organization, especially our players and our fans. There is no excuse for my behavior, and I take full responsibility for my terrible lapse of judgment." How many incidents like does it take? Is it really a sincere apology? Like, how many instances does it take for you to have? Like, I'm sure he said the same thing back when he got accused of the last stuff, and that they kind of swept under the rug. Like,
and the whole my issue is on top of that, Andrew. He's not apologizing for what he said. He's apologizing, saying it out loud to people. Everyone's hearing him. He's not apologizing for what he did.
Yeah, it's like when you do something like that, you have to at least address it to those players that you've probably offended. And it's just, I don't know, it makes no sense to me. He shouldn't have still been there in the first place, like you already said. And it's interesting to see, again, it's crazy that it took him to resign. I guess president, it's tough to kind of force out like that and to a different position. But, I mean, there's still a way. There's still a way for everything that happened. And, again, that kind of goes back in baseball hands as well, as where are you guys stepping in 2018? Like, where are they fixing these issues? Like, you look at NFL, like, yeah, we've seen them make mistakes with in the past, but Roger Goodell has taken initiative a little bit at least in trying to fix those kind of ways. And I think that's where the MLB needs to start stepping in, especially within the last 4 or 5 incidents this past month.
Yeah, and if we're gonna talk about MLB stepping in, I mean, I don't really want to talk about this that much, but Domingo Germán is coming off now an 81 game suspension for. I believe they're called labeling domestic abuse, domestic assault, whichever one we're going to roll with. But he's coming back on the Yankees after 81 games. And I think this might be the first time that, let's use Roberto Osuna, for example. The Astros signed Roberto Osuna after his allegations came out. And when the players were asked, like Justin Verlander, when he was asked about it, he was like, blah blah blah. He's our teammate now. We will do everything we can to get him in the culture, so and so, all that bullshit. Now, Domingo Germán comes back. Zach Britton, who I've gained an immense amount of respect for, he was asked about Germán coming into their clubhouse, and he said, I think this is the exact quote. He said, "You don't get to pick your teammates," something along those lines. So he spoke out about it. The Yankees said that they wanted to, or I think, no, he said in a statement that he wanted to talk to his teammates first before talking to the media. Aaron Boone said that he had no plans for him to talk in front of the team. I don't know if you can talk in front of the team now with COVID. And it's crazy to me that Domingo Germán now is going to be the Yankees' like fifth starter. With his buddy Aroldis Chapman, who again also found I don't know what the correct term is, but I believe he was suspended for domestic assault as well, shooting a gun 8 times around his wife. It's just crazy to me. It's starting to get NFL-esque.
Well, and the same thing, and we already went off about this, man, I don't remember, a few months ago at this point, but the Tony La Russa situation. Like, I understand, like, yeah, everyone, you believe in second chance and stuff, but it doesn't mean you can't take action and punishments. Like, Tony La Russa should be suspended, in my opinion, at least for at least part of the beginning of that season.
That was like loaded, absolutely hammered, and I believe his crash was like at 9 a.m.
Yeah, and that's where I take issue with the league and their handlings of everything, and what I'm trying to say. And like Tony La Russa basically is getting away with in terms of the league. Obviously, he's getting away with everything. Like he's not gonna. There's no punishment towards him. He's going to be out there for game 1. He's going to be out there the entire spring training. Like and I'm not saying this to everyone, but like if players kind of like if there's no punishment involved or anything, like they're not going to like be afraid of like. They're so worried about, and everyone knows how I feel about steroids right now, but it feels like with the way they handle everything, the suspensions that they hand out, it seems like they're more worried about a guy taking steroids than any other issue we've seen in the past few months. And that's where I have to take a lot of issue with the handling of the MLB and where they need to address these things.
Yeah, and well, this is our obligatory mention back to the Astros cheating scandal and how no suspensions and all that stuff was handled out. So I'm glad that we could mention that, though, Andrew. I mean, let's hold our sport accountable for their shitty actions. And Rob, you are confirmed the worst commissioner of all the major sports, and it's really hard to be the worst one when you're in a room with Gary Bettman and Roger Goodell. So
yeah, absolutely. Hopefully, they're shaping up Ken Griffey to be the next one.
Yeah, I know, right? Or Theo Epstein. Theo Epstein's my guy. Theo Epstein's going to be the next commissioner of baseball.
I'll be all right with that.
Okay, so let's move on to Andrew. Spring training. We've
finally
pitchers and catchers reported. We're in the midst of all that. It's a great time. We're getting all those lovely videos that are very aesthetically pleasing to your ears. You get the silence and you just hear thwack, just gloves popping, crunchy cleats on the outfield. On the warning track, all that good stuff. Andrew, my first question for you is, what's your favorite part of spring training?
I think from an outside, like not being there, I think it's got to be the sounds of the game being back. I think the videos of hearing everything, it's fun, and it's the sounds you've missed, and it makes you realize not only is baseball soon to be back, but spring's about to be back too. Give us that warm weather back. But I'll say if you're a big baseball fan like we are, you have to get the spring training. I was able to go a few years ago, and personally, I love the interactions you're able to have. Like it's not like you're going down to a regular season game and they're all pressured, to get ready for those games and everything. Like it's fun. Like the players recognize it's spring training as well. They interact a lot with the fans. And I think that's a really cool feel to it. They take pictures with people. I got multiple autographs. It's a really fun experience. So if you have the opportunity to go to spring training, I highly, highly recommend it.
You go to the Phillies one in Florida?
I did. I went down to Clearwater. I saw. I actually had the. What was it?
I was about to say I thought it was Clearwater. I just marveling at how I knew that. I was like, what the heck?
I was actually able to go to a couple different stadiums, which was pretty cool too. Like I got to see the Phillies in Clearwater, and then I went to the Twins I forget the exact city they were in, but I got to go to the Twins spring training facility and the Rays.
That's cool. I've heard many times that Arizona spring training that's the one. I mean, everything's drivable, so I've never been to a spring training, but one of my goals is to hopefully go to Arizona spring training and just drive around and see everyone. So that'd be really
Hey, let's go to spring training next year.
okay. Bet. Say less. Say less.
We'll do a live show from spring training.
Good. I'll do it. We'll do it from the stands of the game. That'll be fun. Andrew, one of my favorite parts of spring training is that first unveiling of those sweet power rankings, Andrew. I love a good power rankings. I love power rankings. I love talking about power rankings. I love criticizing power rankings. And this is exactly what we're gonna do here. We're gonna talk about MLB.com put out their first rankings, and guess what, Andrew? Surprise, surprise to no one. The Los Angeles Dodgers are number 1, defending World Series champions. Freaking adding Trevor Bauer. I mean, that's not surprising at all to anyone. Number 2, Andrew, the San Diego Padres, of course. Can't have them not at number 2, correct?
No, can't.
Now number 3.
I think the first 2 are very easy.
Now number 3 is where now we're gonna start having issues. This is where the conversation begins. The New York Yankees are number 3. I don't agree with that. Simply put, the New York Yankees are number 3. Go ahead, Andrew.
It's the same as college basketball. You always get the Kentucky, the Duke, and then in football, you always got all those teams that are always at the top of the rankings until the season starts, and you see them kind of fall. Like this year, I think Kentucky and Duke were both top 5 teams coming into the year, and now they're both out of the rankings.
That's a good point.
What was that?
I said that was a good point. Yeah,
it's all because of name. It's all because of name. Everyone loves to have the Yankees at the top, MLB marketing purposes. But when it comes down to it, are they really the 3rd best team in the league? No,
you're right. 4th team that I think is better than the Yankees, the Atlanta Braves. Atlanta Braves. They've added Charlie Morton. They kept Marcell Ozuna, big one, and Freddie Freeman will not be battling COVID this year, hopefully. So that's also a boost right there. Number 5, this might surprise people, Andrew. I think this might surprise you. The New York Mets. The New York Mets are number 5, and I think this is where the Yankees should spot in. I think the Mets and the Yankees should be just like locked together in any power rankings right now.
Yeah, I think both the Mets and the Braves have had a successful offseason. I mean, the Braves were already pretty stacked last year too, and they kind of only added on top of that. So I think I'm with you. I think the Braves are better than the Yankees as well. I think, but I kind of sent you those standings projections from forget who it was for, but it was like a simulation. And some people are down the Braves this year, and obviously that would be isn't if they have them at 4. But I mean, I've seen them picked as low as 3rd or 4th in the NL East this year, which would just be crazy to me. If they're that low in the NL East, they had them at 82 wins, which again, that would just be. I'd be shocked if they only had 82 wins at the end of the year. But I think 5 is a little high for the Mets for me. I understand what they did this offseason. I would say Mets is an interesting team. I like if I was a Mets fan, I would like what they did, but I think there's some teams that might be still higher than them at 5.
All right, number 6, the White Sox. I'm going to sneeze right here quick, but number 6, the White Sox. How do you feel?
I would say it kind of depends on how the locker room comes together. Like I think we saw the movement they made last year. We were both surprised that they fired their manager last season. Are people going to accept Tony La Russa? Are they going to accept what's happened to him in the past with the issues he's had? Are they going to accept what happened to him in the offseason? I think as far as talent, this team is phenomenal. I think, again, they added as well this offseason. Their pitching staff's going to be pretty good. I think they're right there to be a top 5 team in the MLB, honestly. I think you kind of after the top 2 or 3, I think you kind of get a whole mix of a lot of different franchises. But I like what the White Sox did, and I think they'll be favorites, if not right there with the Twins in terms of the AL Central.
Okay, and I'll round out the top 10 here. Number 6, the White Sox. Number 7, the Twins. 8, Blue Jays. 9, Rays. 10, Astros. What about any of those teams, any of the teams outside of the top 5? Do you think they could, or I guess I should say, do you think they should be in the top 5? Any of those Rays, Astros, Blue Jays, Twins, White Sox?
I think I was surprised. Well, I guess top 5, I think I kind of like the directions of the White Sox Twins a little more than the Yankees and Mets. So I'd say they could enter that top 5 spot to answer your question in that spot. But in terms of the Rays, they lost a lot, so I'd say I'm okay with them not being there. Astros are just a question mark because which Astros are you going to get? Like, you still don't know. We all know what happened last year. They make the playoffs barely with a under 500 record, so they kind of got lucky in that sense. But are you going to get the old Jose Altuve back? We'll see what happens there. So outside the top 5, I'd say White Sox Twins would be my first 2 picks.
Okay, fair enough. I think the top 5 are pretty set in stone right now. Well, right now, it's spring training, but I would move around the top 5 a little bit. But I think overall this is a solid, 5. The Mets could definitely fall out of there. I mean, they could be the Mets and not even make the playoffs this year. That is definitely a reality.
That'd be great.
But as of right now, they've won one of the winners of the offseason. Definitely deserve to be in the top 5. Let's move on to 11 through 20 real fast. 11, the Cardinals. I thought that was a little low, but Cardinals coming.
That surprised me.
12 A's, 13 Brewers, 14 Nationals, 15 Indians. That's kind of surprising. The number 16 Cubs, 17 Angels, 18 Phillies, 19 Red Sox, and 20 Reds. Do you have any thoughts?
Yeah. I thought Cardinals should be a top 10 team. I would, with the year the Astros had last year, I'd definitely put them in front of the Astros. You add Nolan Arenado. You already had Paul Goldschmidt. We already know they have probably a Cy Young candidate in Jack Flaherty. So I think, without question, I would have had them ahead of the Astros and the Rays, to be honest. So, and maybe even the Blue Jays. So I'd have them around 8 or 9 in that spot. I would say the A's are better than the Astros as well. They won the division last year by 7 or 8 games. Yes, they lost Hendricks, but they added Trevor Rosenthal, so I think he could still be a fantastic closer for him. So I would have had the A's in the top 10 as well in that category. And then, in all honesty, I think I would have the Phillies a little higher. I'm not as high on the Cubs and Indians, so I think about the 15 range is where I would have put the Phillies.
I agree with you, actually. I think that the Phillies will be right there. I think they're in the Nationals range. I think the Nationals could be higher than the Brewers, and you put the Phillies right there. I don't like what the Indians did. I mean, I like Terry Francona. I think him by himself, he's one of the best managers in baseball. He could put this team in the playoffs. The Cubs obviously regressed, and the Angels being 17 is crazy, but whatever.
Exactly. Is Terry Francona definitely coming back?
Yeah, he's out there.
Okay.
I read.
I never really saw anything after he kind of stopped last season.
Yeah, I read a story about him. He's coming back, but he's fucked up. I mean, literally, the title of the story was like, he's got an IV in. He's in a walking boot, rolling around in a scooter. But Terry Francona is still on the sidelines. They're still in the dugout coaching. So yeah, shout out to Terry Francona. I would not want to see him retire. But I hope he gets better, get all of those health problems out of the way. I think the Red Sox are too high as well, by the way. 19 is being generous. So I'll let
Where would you put them?
We'll talk about that here in a second.
Sure.
20, like I said, the Reds, 21, the Marlins, 22, Giants, 23, Royals. I think that the Red Sox should be behind all of those teams.
Okay.
I think the Reds, the Reds could be at the bottom of this list. We don't know what the hell the Reds are going to doing. It's kind of up in the air since they've sold, and we, like I said, even when the Reds buy in, we don't know what's going to happen. The Marlins were a decent team this year or this last year, and now they're just all written off again. We're doing it again. So the Marlins, they stink. They're not going to make the playoffs. They're in a super tough division. All this stuff, blah blah blah. They've got young arms. They've got a vibe. I think the Marlins should be higher. The Giants too. They're trying to tank. So I think that's a little high, to be honest. So that's one of the teams I guess I could waver with. The Red Sox might be better with. And the Royals. I think the Royals are not going to be awful this year. If you flip the Royals and the Red Sox, I think I'd be okay with that.
All right, I'm not as high on the Royals as you are, but they did sign some interesting signings in Carlos Santana. But
boy, you love him.
Hey, Giants had a good signing today. Did you see that signing?
Who they signed? I saw Kevin Pillar of the Mets. I mean, I see all these random just video game signings sometimes. I'm like, oh, Kevin Pillar's a Met now? Taiwan Walker's a Met now? Wow, okay.
They got the left-hander, Scott Kazmir.
Oh, I did. I did that. Return. See, I was trying to think of active, good baseball. But instead we got Scott Kazmir. Shout out to him. He was, I forget what MLB game it was. It might be MLB like 2K9. It was Tim Lincecum was on the cover. Scott Kazmir and Matt Garza were electric. So shout out to them.
I saw a tweet. It was like batters that have faced him in the NL West, and he had some good numbers against him. I was like, he's faced his manager and Gabe Kapler like 4 or 5 times, and he struck him out like 3 times.
That's comedy. That's funny. All right. To round out this list, we don't have to mention these, but I just want to get them out there. 25 D-backs, 26 Tigers, 27 Rangers, 28 Orioles, 29 Rockies, and rounding out the bottom is the 30 lowly Pirates. Any thoughts on those?
Well, Rockies basically told us what they're doing this year by trading Nolan Arenado, and I expect to see moves more by the deadline. Rangers, interesting spot there. I think.
Say it. Go ahead and say it, please.
I don't know. I don't know if I can say a little low because they got rid of Lance. Like, who on that team is gonna it's a team you're used to being higher, I guess being higher, but it's a situation where you kind of think about what they did. I mean, who did they bring in that would tell you they're going to finish ahead of 27? Just because, I mean, they got rid of Lance Lynn, they got rid of Corey Kluber. I mean, they traded Elvis Andrus. It's a situation where, like, who's going to be that player to make them better? Rangers is a team I thought would be a lot better by now, just because they got the new stadium. I thought they'd be a lot more aggressive, but no, they went the other direction.
Nope, no sir. Yeah, it's hilarious what the Rangers are doing. Shout out to the Orioles, by the way. I believe Fangraph, I think we talked the 0% chance to make the playoffs, and yet they're 28th. So it's little things. It's little things. If you're an Orioles fan.
Hey, Baltimore responded to that tweet, so maybe it's hanging the bulletin board material there, and
they're going to win the AL East. But my last little thing here, Andrew, before we get out of here, is free agency tracker. We still have a lot of free agents available. And I wanted you to give me one name, just one, Andrew, one name
just one
believe will be signed by our next recording.
I'm going with Jackie Bradley Jr.
Oh, okay. Destination, do you have it? We're breaking news real quick.
Okay, man. I'm taking that back. Jackie Bradley Jr. will be a Philly by the season.
Okay.
But I'm not going by next show. By next show, I'm going to go Jake Odorizzi.
Where's he going?
I'm going to say Jake Odorizzi will be a member of, let's say at this point, he's going back to Minnesota.
Okay.
There a lot of talks, now they're battling with the White Sox. White Sox upgraded their starting pitching this offseason. I think you're starting to get to the point where spring training started. These guys are going to be looking to sign somewhere. So Jake Odorizzi goes back to Minnesota on a 1-year deal.
Wow. Did we officially get a Sin-Soo Choo retirement, by the way?
Did we? I did not see that.
I think we might have. That's how much stuff is happening in baseball. I think that's hilarious. Andrew, my guy.
Oh, all right, real quick. I guess maybe retired from MLB, but Shin-Soo Choo is heading to the KBO for 2021.
Hell yes, Sin-Soo. Go! I love that. I want to say, since we talked about the Mariners earlier and how apparently they don't appreciate their Asian players, or their team president didn't, even though they had literally the greatest Asian player of all time in Ichiro. I love when the older Asian players go back to the KBO and they basically just take a victory lap and they're like, yeah, I'm fucking great. Same thing that's basically what Tanaka's doing. So I love that shit too. So shout out to them. But my free agent is, you mentioned him before the show. I'm going to go Shane Green.
Really?
Shane Green gets picked up by a team that needs bullpen help. And do you know who
is it?
The Philadelphia Phillies. I think the Philadelphia Phillies actively try to help and make their team better, maybe.
So you're predicting Shane Green to the Phillies by next week?
I think Shane Green will go to the Phillies by next week.
All right. Hey, I got no issue with that.
I know you.
I will be happy.
I know
we've added to the pen this year. I'm excited.
Okay.
You know how realistic I am when it comes, especially with the Phillies.
Yeah.
I predicted them to miss the playoffs last year and everything. I'm excited for them this year.
Good, good. I'm excited for them as well, Andrew. So you had Jake Odorizzi back to Minnesota to the Twins. I've got Shane Green to the Phillies. It was a fun show, Andrew. Thanks for joining me today. I appreciate it. Let's
No problem.
yeah, no problem. We're gonna this is again Inside Podcast, and let's record the outro real quick. I'll cut this part. So hold on. So Andrew, thank you for joining me. I appreciate it. We're gonna be back. I think next week probably because I have to interview or I have to record and fucking edit all this, and it's gonna be a fun time. And then I think next week too, we will have a special video. Hopefully, I get all these interviews done. It's gonna be a fun little video, little montage, and then maybe that'll get us a little more excited for the baseball season coming.
Absolutely, and get ready for our MLB previews going through each division.
Yes, MLB previews. Hopefully starting next week. It's gonna be fun.
Absolutely.
One a week, and then maybe we'll go twice a week starting baseball season. Who knows? We haven't officially firmed out a schedule yet, but we get you the podcast, and that's what we're here for, right?
Absolutely. Hey, and if you're a fan of a team and you want to reach out and come on and speak about that team, please reach out to one of us at the Twitter handles below.
Please, please, please. You know what? I will specifically ask for right now. I am calling on all of these teams' fans. I need you. A Pirates fan, a Giants fan, the Mariners, Nats, Rays, White Sox, Reds, Indians, and Orioles. If you are a fan of one of those teams, I would greatly appreciate if you slid into my DMs at this at right here. You see it right here at Jose Bouquet. Slide into my DMs and please let's talk about your team real fast. I'd love to hear it. All right. Andrew, like I said, thanks for joining us. We'll catch you guys next week. We'll talk, like I said, division previews. We're going to talk more breaking news. Maybe someone will get signed here and there. And it's going to be fun, Andrew. I can't wait. Oh, by the way, where can people find you? I should ask you that before you go.
People can find me on Twitter right there at the bottom of the screen, AJ_Santangelo, and other podcasts, Philly Sport Now, I do with my brothers. And then, of course, Public Sports Radio. Check out this and any articles I do as well. And then Phillies or Chasing the Pennant is the podcast name, and the Twitter is at NYP Phillies.
Is your name a little out of date? Please.
Yeah, I forgot to change that before the show started.
Oh, that's sad. All right. Thank you guys for watching. We'll catch you guys next week.